I was enjoying my day off, lying on the sofa and watching Netflix when my phone rang. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated before answering. "Hi, Ruby, how are you?" My mother's voice had that sweet, conspiratorial tone she always used when she wanted something. "I'm fine. Just relaxing. What's up?" I asked, mentally prepared. "Oh, I want to ask you a little favor," she said, confirming my suspicions. "Your brother just moved out of the apartment. His lease is up and he's having some temporary financial problems." I sighed. Jake was 26, 4 years younger than me, and had never really settled down. He bounced from job to job, from relationship to relationship, always with some reason why things didn't work out. "Mom, where is this going?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "You had the empty apartment after Mark's divorce," she said, her voice rising. "Jake needed a place to stay until he got his bearings. I thought maybe he could stay there for a while, just until he got his shit together." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. That apartment was my financial lifeline. After our divorce 3 years ago, I kept the apartment we'd bought together as part of the settlement. 2 years later, I bought myself a nicer apartment in a better neighborhood, taking on a big mortgage. My plan was to rent out the old apartment to help cover the mortgage payments. "Mom, I'm going to rent out the place," I reminded her. "I need the rental income to help pay the mortgage." "I know, honey, but this is family. Jake really needs help right now. I'm doing great at marketing and he's struggling. It's just temporary." I knew what temporary meant in Jake's vocabulary. I also knew that if I refused, my mother would bring it up at every family gathering for the next decade, hinting at how I'd abandoned my brother in his time of need. "Okay," I said after a long pause. "He can be there temporarily, but I mean temporarily." "Thank you so much. Jake would appreciate it," my mother said. "I'll tell him right away." Before I could add any more conditions, she hung up. I threw my phone onto the sofa cushion next to me and groaned loudly. That was the end of my rent income. A week later, I met Jake at his old apartment with his few things. He looked exactly as I expected. Casual, relaxed, like he had nothing to worry about, even though he was basically homeless and unemployed. "Hey, thanks for this. You're a lifesaver," he said, giving me a quick hug. He smelled strongly of cigarettes. "Yeah, like I told Mom, this is temporary," I said, unlocking the door and stepping inside. The apartment was clean and bare, with only the basic furniture I'd left behind. "You'll need to rent this place out too." Of course, Jake said, looking around. "I'll be out of here soon. Just need to find my next job, you know. I've got some promising contacts." I'd heard that before. "Jake, there are some rules you need to follow while you're here." He looked at me with slight annoyance, but quickly covered it up. "Sure, go ahead. First, no bringing anyone in without my permission. Second, clean up after yourself. This place needs to be kept clean. Third, no loud parties. The neighbors know me and I don't want complaints. Fourth, no pets without asking me first." Jake held up his hands. "That makes perfect sense. I promise I'll be the perfect tenant. You won't even know I'm here." For the first few weeks, I was wary. I dropped by after work unannounced. And to my surprise, Jake seemed to keep his word. The apartment was clean. No strangers lived there, and he even cooked dinner for me a couple of times when I stopped by. "See, I told you I was a grown-up," he said one evening as we ate the pasta he'd prepared. "I'm impressed," I admitted. Maybe Mom was right this time. When I went to my parents' house for our traditional Saturday dinner, they were full of compliments. "It's nice to see you two getting along so well," my mom said, feeding me meatballs. "Families should always help each other." "I'm proud of you, Ruby." My dad nodded in agreement. "Jake said you were so supportive. That's what siblings are." I felt a warmth of approval that I hadn't felt from them in years. Maybe it wasn't so bad. About 2 months later, I was less guarded. Work was busier, and I was dating someone new. I called Jake occasionally to check in, but I stopped dropping by unannounced. "Is everything okay there?" I asked. "Yeah, everything's fine. House clean. Bills paid. No wild parties," he always replied cheerfully. I should have known it was too good to be true. One Tuesday night, I suddenly remembered that I had left some important documents in a filing cabinet in the spare bedroom of my apartment. I needed them for a meeting the next day, so I drove there without calling first. When I got to the apartment, I could hear music blaring from inside. I rang the doorbell, but no one answered. After trying a few more times, I used my key to let myself in. The sight that greeted me took me by surprise. A young woman I had never seen before was dancing around my living room, wearing only one of Jake's t-shirts. When she saw me, her eyes widened in shock, then narrowed in anger. "Who are you and why are you breaking into our apartment?" she shouted over the music. "Our apartment?" I was too stunned to answer immediately. "Hey, I'm talking to you." "You can't just walk into someone else's house with a key," she continued, using the remote to turn down the volume. Before I could reply, Jake stormed out of the bedroom, wearing only his boxers. His face paled when he saw me. "Ruby, I didn't know you were coming over," he stammered. "Obviously," I said, finding my voice. "Who is this?" The girl crossed her arms. "I should be the one asking who you are." "I'm Ruby. I own this apartment." I turned to Jake. "Explain this." "This is Amber," Jake said, stepping between us. "My girlfriend. She needs a place to stay." "And you brought her in without asking me?" I finished. Even though rule number 1 was no bringing anyone in without my permission. Amber rolled her eyes. "Oh my God. Are you serious? We're adults. Jake doesn't need your permission to have anyone in his apartment." "This isn't his apartment," I said firmly. "This is mine." "Ruby, come on," Jake pleaded, using that pitiful expression he'd used since we were kids. "I love her. We're really serious." "I'd tell you, but I know you'd freak out." I looked back and forth between them. Jake was looking at me with a puppy dog face, while Amber was looking at me with open hostility. "How long has she been living here?" I asked. "About a month," Jake admitted. A whole month without him even mentioning it. I took a deep breath and counted to 10 in my head. "Jake, can we talk in private for a moment?" "Whatever you say to him, you say to my face," Amber interjected. I looked at her. "I want to talk to my brother in private in my apartment." Jake squeezed Amber's hand. "Give us a minute." She huffed, but walked into the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. "Charming," I muttered as she disappeared. "She was just protecting you," Jake said. "And you scared her by just walking into my apartment with your key." I crossed my arms. "Jake, what the hell is going on? We had a deal." I know, he sighed. "But we've been together for 3 months, and her roommate kicked her out, and that makes sense. She's really great when you know her." I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache coming on. Part of me wanted to tell them both to pack up and get out. But I knew what would happen. My parents would side with Jake, and I'd be the cold older sister who kicked my brother and his girlfriend out. "Okay," I said. "She can stay after all. But the other rules still apply. Keep the house clean. No parties. No pets without asking me." Jake's face broke into a huge smile, and he hugged me. "You're the best. I promise we'll follow all the other rules. You won't regret it." "You already do," I muttered. But he didn't hear me. As I gathered up my papers and headed for the door, Amber came out of the bedroom. "So I get to stay?" "That's very generous of me," she said mockingly. "Amber, be polite," Jake said weakly. "No, I'm serious." "Thanks, Ruby," she said, but her tone made it clear she wasn't grateful. "But next time, maybe you should knock before you use your key. It's a little trespassing to just walk into someone's house." I opened my mouth to remind her whose name was on the deed, but decided it wasn't worth it. "Sure." As I reached for the doorknob, Amber stepped in front of me and opened the door. "Bye," she said with a fake smile, and almost slammed the door behind me. I stood in the hallway, stunned. Did that really just happen? My brother's girlfriend just kicked me out of my own apartment. No parties. No pets without asking you. Jake's face broke into a big smile and he hugged me. "You're the best. I promise we'll follow all the other rules. You won't regret it." "You already do," I muttered. But he didn't hear me. As I gathered my papers and headed for the door, Amber came out of the bedroom. "So I get to stay?" "That's so generous," she said mockingly. "Amber, be polite," Jake said weakly. No, I'm serious. Thanks, Ruby, she said, but her tone made it clear she wasn't grateful. But next time, maybe you should knock before you use your key. Just walking into someone else's house is a little trespassing. I opened my mouth to remind her whose name was on the deed, but decided it wasn't worth it. Sure. As I reached for the doorknob, Amber stepped in front of me and opened the door. Bye, she said with a fake smile and almost slammed the door behind me. I stood in the hallway stunned. Did that really just happen? My brother's girlfriend just kicked me out of my own apartment. No parties. No pets without asking you. Jake's face broke into a big smile and he hugged me. You're the best. I promise we'll follow all the other rules. You won't regret it. You already do, I muttered. But he didn't hear me. As I gathered my papers and headed for the door, Amber came out of the bedroom. So I get to stay? That's so generous, she said mockingly. Amber, be polite, Jake said weakly. No, I'm serious. Thanks, Ruby, she said, but her tone made it clear she wasn't grateful. But next time, maybe you should knock before you use your key. Just walking into someone else's house is a little trespassing. I opened my mouth to remind her whose name was on the deed, but decided it wasn't worth it. Sure. As I reached for the doorknob, Amber stepped in front of me and opened the door. Bye, she said with a fake smile and almost slammed the door behind me. I stood in the hallway stunned. Did that really just happen? My brother's girlfriend just kicked me out of my own apartment. That Saturday, I went to my parents' house for dinner, still angry about the encounter. So you've met Jake's girlfriend, I said as we ate. She's cute, right? My mom beamed. Jake brought her here last week. She's so sweet. I nearly choked on my potato chip. Sweet? She was incredibly rude to me. I told them about finding Amber at the apartment and how she'd treated me. My mom waved her hand in disapproval. Maybe you just caught her at the wrong time. And using your key without warning is a big deal. It's your apartment, I said, feeling like I was replaying a stuck record. And they broke the rules we agreed on. Oh, Ruby, my mom sighed. You need to understand that Jake is serious about a relationship here. They want to build a home together. In your apartment, I insisted. Can't you be happy for your brother? My dad asked. After your divorce, you should know how important it is to find someone. That stung. They knew my ex-husband had cheated on me. Yet somehow they were using my failed marriage to make me feel guilty about Jake. This has nothing to do with your divorce, I said. This is about Jake not honoring our agreement. Family is more important than rules, my mom said firmly. You have 2 apartments, Ruby. Your brother doesn't have one. You can be generous. I gave up trying to make them understand and changed the subject. The next week, I received the utility bill for Jake's apartment. My jaw dropped when I saw the amount, nearly double what it had been. I called Jake immediately. Hey, have you seen the utility bills? They're double what they should be. What's going on? Oh, she hesitated. Amber likes to take long showers, like really long. And she said she needs light to see, so she turns on all the lights. I closed my eyes and counted to 10 again. Jake, you pay the bills. I know, I'm sorry. I'll talk to her about it. Please, I said. I can't afford these increases. I promise I'll take care of it. I wanted to believe her, but part of me knew better. 3 weeks later, my phone rang. It was Mrs. Patel, the old woman who lived across the street from me. Miss Ruby, I'm sorry to bother you, she said in her soft voice. But there have been loud parties in your apartment. Lots of nights, late, too much noise, too many people. I apologized profusely, promising to work things out, even as anger boiled inside me. First the roommates, then the bills, now the partying. Jake broke all the rules. The next day, I drove to the apartment after work. I knocked and rang the doorbell, but no one answered. I tried my key, but it wouldn't turn in the lock. I stared at the door in shock. They had changed the locks. They had changed the locks on my apartment. I was furious. I got out of the car and decided to wait. 2 hours later, Jake and Amber showed up, walking toward the entrance of the building. I followed them inside and up the elevator. When they reached the apartment door, I called out, "Jake." He turned, his face ashen when he saw me. Amber looked uncomfortable. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "We need to talk about why my key doesn't work anymore," I said. Jake, at least, had the nerve. "Ruby, you can explain." "Let's go inside and talk," I insisted, pushing Amber aside. She gave me an annoyed look but stepped aside. Inside, I found the apartment more cluttered than before. Empty beer bottles lined the kitchen counter, and the living room furniture had been rearranged. "Why did you change the locks?" I asked. Before Jake could answer, Amber jumped in. "I don't like the idea of you just walking in whenever you want. It's creepy." I turned to Jake. "Are you okay with this?" He looked down at the floor, then nodded slightly. "You know, that's enough," I said. "Mrs. Patel had called me yesterday. She said I threw a loud party." "That old lady needs to mind her own business," Amber muttered. "The neighbors are my problem," I said. "And the utility bills, they've doubled since you moved in." Jake stepped forward. "Ruby, can we talk about this later, when everyone's calmer?" "No, we're talking now," I insisted. "You broke every rule we agreed on. You brought people in without asking me. You didn't keep the house clean. You threw parties. And now you've changed the locks on my property without my permission." Amber rolled her eyes and went to a drawer, pulling out a folded piece of paper. "Here," she said, thrusting it into my hand. "What's this?" I asked, not taking it. "A list of rules," she said, pushing it into my hand. "If you want to visit my apartment, here are the conditions." I unfolded the paper, not believing what I was hearing. When I finished reading the list, my jaw dropped. The first rule said that I needed to give them at least 3 days' notice before visiting. The second rule said that I couldn't come after 7 p.m. or before 10 a.m. The third rule forbade any discussion of bills. The fourth rule said that I needed to be quiet when visiting and not cause drama. Rule number 5 required me to buy them new furniture because the current one was old and ugly. The list went on with increasingly ridiculous demands. I looked up from the paper to see Amber smirking and Jake looking annoyed. Something inside me broke. A strange calm washed over me. "You have a week to move out," I said. Their smug expressions vanished. "What?" Jake spluttered. "You can't kick us out," Amber yelled. "We have rights. Your names aren't on the lease." "There's no lease. This is my property and I'm telling you to have a week to find somewhere else to live." Amber's face twisted in rage. She grabbed a vase from the shelf, a blue glass vase I'd bought in Venice on my honeymoon, and threw it on the floor. It shattered into dozens of pieces. I flinched but kept my cool. "That vase cost $200. You're going to pay me back." "Go to hell," she spat. She reached for another ornament, a ceramic bowl. "Touch anything else and I'll call the cops," I warned her. "Vandalism is a crime." She froze, her hand still outstretched. "A week," I repeated, then turned and walked out. As I closed the door behind me, I heard Amber screaming obscenities, and Jake tried to calm her down. I walked to my car, my head held high, but once I got in, my hands started shaking. I'd never stood up to Jake like this before. I'd barely pulled into the driveway when the phone rang. My mom's name flashed across the screen. "Great, Jake's calling her." "I'm listening," I answered, bracing myself. "Ruby, what's wrong with you?" She began immediately. "Jake just called us, crying. How can you throw your brother and his girlfriend out? Mom, they changed the locks on your apartment without asking you." "I'm sure they have their reasons," she said dismissively. "You always barge in unannounced." My dad's voice rose. "We're so disappointed in you, Ruby. After all we've done for you, Dad, what have you done for me?" I interrupted. "I bought a house with my money. I paid my mortgage. I let Jake live on my property rent-free, and he's taking advantage of me." "That girl seemed nice," my mom said. "Jake said you were hostile to her from the start." I laughed in disbelief. "Amber threw a vase at me today. She wrote a list of rules I had to follow to get on my property." "You're exaggerating," my mom said. "Ever since Mark left you, you've been bitter." "We understand, dear, but don't take it out on your brother." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I hung up and turned off the phone. I sat in my car for a long time, staring into space, letting the anger and hurt wash over me. The next day, I called a friend who was a lawyer to make sure I had the right to evict Jake and Amber. She confirmed that since their names weren't on the lease and the property was in my name, I could legally ask them to leave. I also arranged for a locksmith to meet me at the apartment the following week. The days passed slowly. Jake called a few times, but I let the calls go to voicemail. His messages ranged from angry, "You're being completely unreasonable," to pleading, "Please, Ruby, we have nowhere to go." I didn't return any of their messages. My parents called too. I ignored their calls too. Finally, the week ended. I took the day off from work and drove to the apartment. The locksmith was scheduled to arrive an hour later. I wasn't sure what to expect. Were they still there? I knocked, and to my surprise, Jake answered almost immediately. His eyes were red and he looked tired. "We're almost done," he said softly. I nodded and stepped inside. The apartment was a mess. Cardboard boxes and bags were strewn everywhere. Amber was in the bedroom, stuffing clothes into a suitcase. "Where are you two going?" I asked, though I shouldn't have. "Mom and Dad said we could stay with them until we found a place," Jake replied, not meeting my eyes. I felt a small pang of guilt, which I quickly suppressed. This was the consequence of their actions, not mine. We didn't talk much as they finished cleaning. Amber refused to look at me, moving around as if I were invisible. When they were finally ready to leave, she threw her keys on the floor at my feet without a word. "Amber," Jake said weakly, but she was already out the door. Jake lingered. "I'm sorry about the vase," he said. "And the lock. It was Amber's idea, but I said yes." "I always say yes to everything, Jake," I said. "That's my problem." He nodded sadly, then picked up his last bag and left. After Jake and Amber left, I surveyed the damage to my apartment. It was a mess. There were stains on the carpet, scuff marks on the walls, and the bathroom had a layer of gunk that made me sick. The kitchen was no better. The sink was full of dirty dishes, and something unidentifiable was growing in the refrigerator. The locksmith came and changed all the locks. I paid him extra to install a deadbolt for extra security. While he worked, I started cleaning up, filling bag after bag with the trash they'd left behind. It took me 3 days to get the apartment back to decent condition. I had to hire a professional cleaner for the bathroom and kitchen, and I ended up having to replace the carpet in the living room. In total, it cost me over $1,000 to fix everything. Once the apartment was clean, I posted it for rent. I took professional photos, wrote a detailed description, and set a reasonable price that covered my mortgage and a little extra for maintenance. Within a week, I had several applications. I finally chose a young doctor who was starting her residency at a local hospital. She had excellent credit, a steady income, and no pets. We signed a proper lease with all the details spelled out. On the day she moved in, I handed her the keys with a sense of accomplishment. This was how it should be, a business transaction between responsible adults. As I drove home, I felt relieved. The income from the rent would go a long way toward my mortgage payments, just as I'd planned before Jake screwed things up. Over the next few weeks, I enjoyed my peaceful life. I focused on work, started a yoga class, and went on a few dates. It was nice to have my own space and boundaries again. My parents eventually stopped calling, although they still sent the occasional text message asking me to stop being so stubborn and make up with my brother. I deleted these messages without replying. Then, about a month after Jake and Amber moved out, I got a text from my mom that stopped me. "Ruby, I know you're still upset, but I need to talk to you. It's important. Please call me." Something in her tone seemed different. I hesitated, then decided to call her back. "Mom, what's wrong?" There was a heavy sigh on the other end of the line. "Ruby, I owe you an apology. Amber isn't who we thought she was. She took over the living room like it was her own room. She left things everywhere, used up all the hot water, and got angry if we asked her to clean up." "Sounds familiar," I said dryly. "She made rules for us in our own house," my mother said, her voice cracking slightly. "She told your father he couldn't watch TV after 9 because the noise bothered her. And she invited friends over for dinner without asking me." I couldn't help but feel a little satisfied. "That must have been hard for you." "Now I see what you've been through," my mother admitted. "Can you talk to Jake? Maybe convince him and Amber to get their own place. Your parents are at their wits' end." I laughed in disbelief. Are you serious? Now you want me to solve your problems after you sided with them against me? Ruby, please. We were wrong. We are your parents and you are our daughter, but that doesn't stop you from accusing me of being jealous and bitter, I replied. That doesn't stop you from dismissing everything I say about how they treat you and your property. We were wrong, my mother said softly. I'm sorry. The apology should have made me feel better, but it came too late. Mom, you and Dad created the situation. You've tolerated Jake's behavior his whole life. You've taught him that rules don't apply to him and that someone else will always clean up his messes. What are we going to do about them? My mother asked, sounding genuinely confused. That's your problem, not mine, I said. Like my apartment is my problem, remember? There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Can you at least talk to us again? Come to dinner on Saturday. I considered. Part of me wanted to keep my anger to make them suffer as they had made me suffer. But another part realized that this could be an opportunity for real change in our family dynamic. I'll think about it, I said finally. But I'm not going to fix this for you. I understand, my mother said. We love you, Ruby. After we hung up, I sat on the sofa, thinking about the conversation. There was a certain poetic justice in my parents going through what I had. Maybe now they would understand why I was so adamant. Over the next few days, I debated whether or not to go to dinner on Saturday. In the end, I decided to go, not to solve their problems, but to establish new boundaries for our relationship going forward. As for Jake and Amber, I didn't feel obligated to help them. My brother made his choices, and now he can live with them. If this experience finally forces him to grow up and take responsibility for his own life, then maybe something good will come of it. Meanwhile, my tenant pays his rent on time every month. That money goes straight into my mortgage, just as I planned before Jake screwed things up. I'm moving forward with my life on my own terms, without apologizing for standing up for what's mine. What are we going to do about them? My mom asked, sounding genuinely confused. That's your problem, not mine, I said. Like my apartment is my problem, remember? There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Can you at least talk to us again? Come to dinner on Saturday. I considered. Part of me wanted to keep my anger to make them suffer as they had made me suffer. But another part realized that this could be an opportunity for real change in our family dynamic. I'll think about it, I said finally. But I'm not going to fix this for you. I understand, my mother said. We love you, Ruby. After we hung up, I sat on the sofa, thinking about the conversation. There was a certain poetic justice in my parents going through what I had. Maybe now they would understand why I was so adamant. Over the next few days, I debated whether or not to go to dinner on Saturday. In the end, I decided to go, not to solve their problems, but to establish new boundaries for our relationship going forward. As for Jake and Amber, I didn't feel obligated to help them. My brother made his choices, and now he can live with them. If this experience finally forces him to grow up and take responsibility for his own life, then maybe something good will come of it. Meanwhile, my tenant pays his rent on time every month. That money goes straight into my mortgage, just as I planned before Jake screwed things up. I'm moving forward with my life on my own terms, without apologizing for standing up for what's mine. What are we going to do about them? My mom asked, sounding genuinely confused. That's your problem, not mine, I said. Like my apartment is my problem, remember? There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Can you at least talk to us again? Come to dinner on Saturday. I considered. Part of me wanted to keep my anger to make them suffer as they had made me suffer. But another part realized that this could be an opportunity for real change in our family dynamic. I'll think about it, I said finally. But I'm not going to fix this for you. I understand, my mother said. We love you, Ruby. After we hung up, I sat on the sofa, thinking about the conversation. There was a certain poetic justice in my parents going through what I had. Maybe now they would understand why I was so adamant. Over the next few days, I debated whether or not to go to dinner on Saturday. In the end, I decided to go, not to solve their problems, but to establish new boundaries for our relationship going forward. As for Jake and Amber, I didn't feel obligated to help them. My brother made his choices, and now he can live with them. If this experience finally forces him to grow up and take responsibility for his own life, then maybe something good will come of it. Meanwhile, my tenant pays his rent on time every month. That money goes straight into my mortgage, just as I planned before Jake screwed things up. I'm moving forward with my life on my own terms, without apologizing for standing up for what's mine. Not to solve their problems, but to set new boundaries for our relationship going forward. As for Jake and Amber, I don't feel obligated to help them. My brother made his choices, and now he can live with them. If this experience finally forces him to grow up and take responsibility for his own life, then maybe something good will come of it. Meanwhile, my tenants pay their rent on time every month. That money goes straight into my mortgage, just as I planned before Jake screwed things up. I'm moving forward with my life on my own terms, without apologizing for standing up for what's mine. Not to solve their problems, but to set new boundaries for our relationship going forward. As for Jake and Amber, I don't feel obligated to help them. My brother made his choices, and now he can live with them. If this experience finally forces him to grow up and take responsibility for his own life, then maybe something good will come of it. Meanwhile, my tenants pay their rent on time every month. That money goes straight into my mortgage, just as I planned before Jake screwed things up. I'm moving forward with my life on my own terms, without apologizing for standing up for what's mine.